Clapham Park was once voted one of the worst housing estates in London. It suffers from common social problems, crime, drug use and unemployment. Many of the residents rely on state assistance to get by. The dilapidated blocks were due to be demolished and rebuilt, but the money has run out. Vernon de Maynard chairs the local residents association.
Where has this money gone? We ask them, we say, well, when are we going to get our decent homes? And they're talking about 2016, 17 plus. You know, again, it's little person at the bottom of the scale, as it were, that gets it in the neck.
It's places like this that could be hit hardest by cuts in housing and social benefits. But Britain's new Chancellor, George Osborne, claims the previous Labour administration took the country to the edge of bankruptcy. So, in an emergency budget, he outlined a huge cut in government spending, 25% over 5 years. It's been met with angry protests. Dave Prentis is General Secretary of the Unison union.
80%, 4/5 of dealing with the deficit that we're now in, through the bankers and all the problems that they caused, is to be borne by public service workers and the services that they provide.
The British government spent the equivalent of more than $1 trillion on bailing out the banks following the economic crisis. It's helped push the deficit in Britain to more than 11% of GDP, one of the highest in Europe. The government says Britain, like Greece or Spain, is in danger of losing its AAA credit rating. So it's slashing spending to balance the books. Susan Anderson is with the private business group Confederation of British Industry. She says the government is right to take drastic action.
The UK is facing a considerable period of financial austerity. We know we've got one of the highest deficits in the OECD. We know we need to take action. We think the government has taken the right balance in terms of squeezing public spending, cutting public spending and some tax increases.
With its own sterling currency, Britain has been able to keep the euro crisis at arm's length. But Europe is Britain's biggest trading partner, and any problems there will hit the British economy. Economics professor Wendy Carlin of University College London says there's a further risk that simultaneous cuts across the continent will make things worse.
The problem is if all the big countries in Europe cut spending at the same time, then it's very difficult to think of where the extra sources of demand are going to come from to sustain the recovery into growth.
For business owners like Michele Marconi, the prospect of another recession is frightening. She runs a flower shop in London's Borough Market, selling the type of luxury item that's vulnerable in a downturn and which now faces a sales tax increase to 20%.
In my position, I can't do a lot, so I just have to follow and see how things are going. They're just going to probably buy less flowers. But I think that if you're still doing quality, you always have your customer come back.
Such optimism is reflected in the general public. A recent poll showed that 59% of the British people support the government's spending cuts. The message about the danger of the debt seems to be getting through.
Public services are services! Stop the condemn!
But the full effects of the cuts will only be felt in the coming years. More protests like this seem certain as British society faces its biggest transformation in a generation. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.